20 oldest restaurants in America, one from every state. Ever wondered where you can still grab a bite, where presidents, pioneers, and outlaws once dined? From century-old taverns to legendary diners, these are the oldest restaurants in 20 U.S. states, each serving up more than just food, but unforgettable flavors and fascinating stories from America's past. Let's take a delicious journey through time. The Bright Star. If you're ever in Bessemer, Alabama, make time for a true Southern treasure, the Bright Star, the oldest restaurant in the state. It opened its doors way back in 1907 thanks to Greek immigrant Pete Karras. What began as a cozy 25-seat diner serving chili and sandwiches to local steelworkers has grown into a landmark with 5 dining rooms and a bustling bar, now seating over 300 guests. The family tradition continued when Karras's grandnephews joined the business in the 1920s, adding fresh Gulf snapper with a Greek flair to the menu. That dish became legendary, earning national praise. Today, the Bright Star blends Greek and Southern flavors like nowhere else, with dishes like Mediterranean-style lobster, tender beef, crab, and a spanakopita that's absolutely unforgettable. The Snake Pit. Tucked away in the tiny town of Enneville, the Snake Pit is a true Idaho legend that's been around since 1880. Once serving as everything from a hotel to a brothel, it now stands proudly as one of the state's oldest and quirkiest restaurants. Stepping inside feels like hopping into a time machine with walls covered in antiques, odd trinkets, and even a 1954 Elkhorn chair. One of the most unique features? A fireplace built entirely from rocks brought in by loyal customers over the decades. But it's not just the history that draws folks in. It's the food. Favorites include hearty buffalo burgers and the epic North Fork burger, stacked high with bacon, cheese, ham, and all the fresh fixings. The vibe is rustic, the stories are rich, and every bite comes with a side of frontier charm. If you're anywhere near northern Idaho, this is one stop you'll be glad you made. The Skagway Inn. Tucked in the heart of Alaska's Klondike Gold Rush National Park, the Skagway Inn is more than just a place to stay. It's a living piece of frontier history. Built in 1897, this charming inn has worn many hats over the years. A brothel during the gold rush, a hospital, a family home, and now a warm and welcoming bed and breakfast. Its Victorian-era character and cozy atmosphere make it a favorite stop for travelers seeking a touch of the past. But it's the food that really steals the show, especially their fresh Alaskan halibut, caught wild and cooked to perfection. One must-try is their halibut and salmon ceviche, a zesty mix of flaky fish, bright citrus, crisp onions, and colorful peppers. It's a taste of Alaska's rich land and sea, served with a side of Gold Rush history. The Village Tavern. In Long Grove, Illinois, the Village Tavern stands as a living testament to time, dating all the way back to 1847. What began as a humble wagon shop has since become the oldest continuously operating restaurant in the state. Steeped in charm and history, it features a stunning mahogany bar that famously survived the McCormick Place fire of 1967, and an antique grandfather clock from the 1890s that still ticks proudly. The owners have preserved its old-world feel with touches like reclaimed wood from an 1840s barn. Additions over the years haven't erased its soul. In fact, traditions thrive here, like the Friday night piano player, who's been entertaining guests for nearly 4 decades. But when it comes to the food, all eyes are on their legendary prime rib, juicy, tender, and slow-roasted to perfection. Served with 2 hearty sides, it's a dish that keeps locals and visitors coming back again and again. Oark General Store. Deep in the hills of Johnson County, Arkansas, you'll find a small-town treasure that's been serving locals and travelers since 1890, the Oark General Store. It's the oldest continually operating store in the state, And while it once stocked shelves with supplies for early settlers, it's now known for something even better: the food. Over time, this rustic gem evolved into a cozy roadside diner, welcoming campers, hikers, and off-road adventurers from around the Mulberry River. The menu offers hearty breakfasts, juicy burgers, fresh salads, and tasty sandwiches. But the real star? Their legendary homemade pies. Warm, flaky, and filled with love, these pies have become the stuff of road trip legend. Which of these historic restaurants have you visited or want to visit most? Tell us your favorite or your bucket list pick. The Palace Restaurant and Saloon. Step into the Old West at the Palace Restaurant and Saloon, Arizona's oldest bar and a true Prescott legend. Since opening its doors in 1877 on the famous Whiskey Row, this iconic spot has been more than a saloon. It's a living piece of frontier history. It was once the watering hole for miners, outlaws, lawmen like Wyatt Earp, and business tycoons alike. When a devastating fire swept through the area in 1900, loyal patrons carried out the massive wooden Brunswick bar to safety. That same bar still stands proudly today. Rebuilt in 1901 as the Palace Hotel and Bar, the place grew to include a Chinese restaurant and even a barber shop. Now, a beloved tourist stop, the Palace serves up bison burgers, creamy corn chowder, and strong whiskey cocktails, all in a setting decorated with original artifacts and Rough Rider charm. Tadich Grill. Founded in 1849 during the gold rush by 3 Croatian immigrants, it began as a simple coffee stand on the waterfront, serving grilled fish to hungry sailors and merchants. One of those early workers, John Tadich, eventually took over and transformed it into a full-fledged restaurant. After surviving the 1906 earthquake and relocating to California Street, Tadich Grill grew into a seafood institution. Today, it's the oldest restaurant in both San Francisco and the entire state. Known for its classy, old-school charm and wood-paneled interior, it draws loyal diners with fresh, daily-caught seafood. The must-try? Their iconic Tadich Cioppino, a hearty, aromatic bowl brimming with fish, scallops, mussels, and shellfish in a savory tomato broth. The Buckhorn Exchange. If you're craving a wild taste of the Old West, the Buckhorn Exchange in Denver, Colorado is the place to be. Opened in 1893, it's the state's oldest restaurant and an unforgettable blend of dining and history. Step inside, and you're surrounded by a museum of frontier life. Walls lined with over 500 mounted animals, antique firearms, and Old West memorabilia. This isn't your typical steakhouse. The Buckhorn is famous for its rocky mountain oysters, yes, bull calf testicles, a local delicacy for the adventurous eater. But the menu also features elk, yak, buffalo, and even alligator. Live music and Buffalo Bill look-alike contests add to the fun, making it feel like a celebration of Colorado's wild, untamed spirit. Jessop's Tavern. If you're hungry for both history and hearty food, Jessop's Tavern in New Castle, Delaware delivers on both fronts. Housed in a building that dates all the way back to 1674, this tavern has roots stretching deep into America's colonial past. In 1724, Abraham Jessop ran a barrel-making shop here, and centuries later, the place still bears his name. Over the years, it's been a home, a workshop, and even a 1950s restaurant called the Captain's Log. But since 1996, under the care of the Day family, it's become a cozy colonial-style tavern celebrating the area's rich European influences. The menu features English pub fare, Dutch cheeses, and Swedish-inspired sauces, all with a distinctly American twist. One standout dish is the Havam mussels, a pound of fresh mussels steamed in Belgian ale with tomatoes, garlic, West Indian spices, and topped with cheese, served alongside warm grilled flatbread. It's a taste of the old world served in a slice of American history. The Griswold Inn. First opened in 1776 by three Griswold brothers, this iconic inn has been welcoming guests since the Revolutionary War. Set near the scenic Connecticut River and charming coastal views, the inn is more than just a place to sleep. It's a full experience. The main dining room, crafted from a dismantled covered bridge, is lined with maritime art and historical treasures. There's also a rustic tap room that once served as a schoolhouse, and a sophisticated wine bar perfect for a cozy night out. But the real star? Their award-winning New England clam chowder, made extra special with a touch of thyme and dill. Over the centuries, the Griswold Inn has changed hands just a handful of times, and its commitment to tradition, hospitality, and hearty fare has never wavered. Thank you for watching. To continue with more content, comment "Yes" to let us know you're still following. Columbia Restaurant. A trip to Tampa, Florida isn't complete without a stop at the legendary Columbia Restaurant, the oldest restaurant in the state and the largest Spanish restaurant in the world. Founded in 1905 by Cuban immigrant Casimiro Hernandez Sr., what started as a modest cafe in the heart of Ybor City has grown into a grand dining destination that takes up an entire city block and seats over 1,700 guests. Columbia is known for its rich Spanish and Cuban cuisine, but the star of the show is the iconic 1905 salad. Prepared tableside, this signature dish combines crisp iceberg lettuce, juicy tomatoes, Swiss cheese, julienne ham, green olives, and a zingy garlic vinaigrette. Flavors that have stood the test of time. More than a meal, dining at Columbia feels like stepping into history with its ornate tile work, flamenco performances, and deep cultural roots. It's no wonder celebrities and locals alike keep coming back. Plaza Restaurant and Oyster Bar. In the charming town of Thomasville, Georgia, you'll find a true Southern institution, the Plaza Restaurant and Oyster Bar. Since 1916, this family-run spot has been dishing out warm hospitality and unforgettable food, especially their famous fried oysters. What began as a tiny 26-seat eatery has grown into a bustling restaurant that now welcomes up to 500 guests. The menu still carries the flavors of its Greek heritage, but has evolved over the years to include hearty Southern favorites. From seafood to homemade pies crafted from recipes passed down for more than half a century, every bite feels like a tradition. The lively bar draws a regular crowd with great happy hour deals, making it a go-to for locals and travelers alike. But if you're only ordering one thing, make it the golden, crispy fried oysters, the undisputed star of the menu. Manago Hotel. Nestled in the quiet town of Captain Cook on Hawaii's Big Island, the Manago Hotel has been welcoming guests with warm aloha since 1917. Founded by Kinzo and Osame Manago, this historic hotel has long been a haven for travelers and locals alike, thanks in large part to its legendary dining room. The undisputed highlight here is their famous pork chops, thick, juicy, and cooked to perfection in a cast-iron skillet that's been seasoned for generations. That skillet adds a deep, savory flavor you simply can't replicate. The atmosphere is just as inviting as the food. With vintage decor, wooden tables, and no frills, the dining room feels like a nostalgic step back in time. Service is always warm and friendly, making guests feel like part of the family. The Log Inn. Established in 1825 by pioneer Henry Hobb, this log cabin-turned-restaurant even hosted Abraham Lincoln during his campaign trail, adding a presidential footnote to its legacy. Walking through its doors feels like entering a time capsule where wooden beams, rustic decor, and cozy charm create an atmosphere straight out of the 1800s. The menu pays tribute to its roots with a hearty blend of traditional American and German comfort food. But the undisputed favorite? Their fried chicken, golden, juicy, and seasoned just right. It's a dish that locals swear by and travelers seek out. Breitbach's Country Dining. Nestled in the scenic hills of Balltown, Iowa, Breitbach's Country Dining isn't just the state's oldest restaurant. It's a symbol of small-town resilience and family tradition. First opened in 1852, this beloved eatery has been owned and operated by the same family for 6 generations. And despite suffering not one, but 2 destructive fires, Breitbach's always came back stronger, rebuilt with love and community support. It's the kind of place where everyone feels like family, and the food tastes like home. Their pork tenderloin, crispy on the outside, juicy and full of flavor on the inside, is the stuff of Iowa legend. Whether you're stopping in for a hearty meal or soaking up the view of the Mississippi River bluffs, Breitbach's offers a slice of comfort that has stood the test of time for over 170 years. Which dish sounded the most mouth-watering to you? Oysters Rockefeller, banana bread, or homemade pies? Founded by Seth Hayes, the great-grandson of legendary explorer Daniel Boone, this iconic spot once offered food and shelter to pioneers making the rugged 8-week journey between New Mexico and Missouri. Over the decades, it's played many roles, from trading post to inn, but it's always been a place of welcome. Today, Hayes House still dishes out hearty comfort food with a side of old-school charm. The country fried steak is a top pick, crispy, tender, and smothered in gravy, while their homemade desserts keep sweet-toothed visitors coming back again and again. With wood-paneled walls and stories in every corner, dining here is like stepping into the Old West, only with better pie. The Old Talbott Tavern. In the heart of Bardstown, Kentucky, the Old Talbott Tavern stands as a proud relic of America's past, welcoming travelers since 1779. Originally built as a stagecoach stop, it's now considered the oldest Western stagecoach inn in the country and boasts the oldest bourbon bar in the world. Over the centuries, it's hosted a lineup of legendary guests, from Abraham Lincoln to Jesse James, who supposedly left bullet holes in the wall. Despite surviving fires and major renovations, the tavern still holds on to its colonial-era charm. 6 historic guest rooms are named after famous visitors like Lincoln, General Patton, and Jesse James, letting guests sleep where history walked. Inside, you'll find a cozy pub, a charming restaurant, and a gift shop filled with local treasures. But the real must-try? The Kentucky Hot Brown, a warm, open-faced sandwich piled with roasted turkey, bacon, tomatoes, and creamy Mornay sauce, then baked until golden. It's rich, it's comforting, and it's southern to the core, just like the Old Talbott Tavern itself. Antoine's Restaurant. When it comes to historic dining in New Orleans, Antoine's Restaurant is in a league of its own. Founded in 1840 by French immigrant Antoine Alciatore, it holds the honor of being the oldest family-run restaurant in the United States. For over 180 years, Antoine's has served refined French Creole cuisine to presidents, popes, and everyday food lovers alike. This iconic spot has weathered every major storm, literally and figuratively, from the Civil War and Prohibition to Hurricane Katrina, and come out stronger each time. Its most legendary dish? Oysters Rockefeller. Created by Antoine's son Jules in 1899, these baked oysters, drenched in a rich, mysterious green sauce, have become world famous. The exact recipe is still a closely guarded family secret, adding even more allure to every bite. With its maze of themed dining rooms and a legacy etched into the heart of the French Quarter, Antoine's is more than a restaurant. It's a culinary institution steeped in New Orleans tradition. The Palace Diner. Built by Louis E. Moraine, this vintage railcar-style diner is one of the oldest in the state, and it's kept things beautifully simple. No booths, no frills, just 15 stools at a well-worn counter, each with a view of the sizzling action in the kitchen. Today, the diner is run by Chad Connolly and Greg Mitchell, two classically trained chefs who met while working on a farm and decided to bring their passion for quality ingredients to the historic spot. Their menu blends nostalgia with gourmet sensibilities. Think crispy tuna melts on challah, perfectly cooked eggs, and moist house-made banana bread that melts in your mouth. It's old-school charm with new-school flavor, all packed into one tiny, beloved diner that proves great food doesn't need flash, just heart. Middleton Tavern. Established in 1750 as a private residence, this landmark later transformed into a tavern that quickly became a hub for revolutionary thinkers, including George Washington and Thomas Jefferson. It's one of the oldest continuously operating taverns in America, and you can feel the colonial spirit in every corner, from the wood-paneled walls to the nautical views of the harbor. But the real legend here? The crab cakes. Packed with fresh lump crab meat, lightly seasoned, and broiled to golden perfection, they've earned a reputation as some of the best in the state. Pair them with a waterfront breeze, and you've got a dining experience that's as rich in flavor as it is in history. Do you know of an old restaurant in your state that should have made the list? Share its name and location. We might feature it next. Union Oyster House. Right in the heart of Boston sits Union Oyster House, the oldest continuously operating restaurant in America, serving guests since 1826. This iconic eatery isn't just known for its oysters, it's a living piece of American history. The founding fathers themselves once gathered here, discussing politics and independence over plates of seafood. As you climb the narrow wooden stairs or settle into one of the dark wooden booths, you're stepping into the very atmosphere of early America. And while the menu boasts plenty of fresh seafood, the New England clam chowder is the standout. Thick, creamy, and soul-warming, this chowder has been honed over generations into the perfect comfort dish. A spoonful of it, surrounded by the scent of the sea and whispers of the past, is like tasting a piece of Boston's soul. The White Horse Inn. In the quaint village of Metamora, Michigan, the White Horse Inn has been welcoming hungry travelers since 1850, earning its title as the oldest restaurant in the state. What began as a bustling stagecoach stop is now a beautifully preserved slice of the past, full of Victorian charm and rustic elegance. With its exposed beams, stone fireplace, and candle-lit tables, stepping inside feels like entering another era. The menu blends timeless comfort with upscale touches, and nothing says indulgence like their beef Wellington, tender filet wrapped in flaky pastry with rich mushroom duxelles. It's the house favorite for good reason. Hubbell House. In the tiny town of Mantorville, Minnesota, you'll find a restaurant where history and hospitality meet over a plate of prime rib. Welcome to the Hubbell House. Established in 1854, back when Minnesota was still a territory, this legendary spot has been serving guests for nearly 2 centuries. It's hosted an impressive list of visitors, from Ulysses S. Grant and Helen Keller to Mickey Mantle and multiple U.S. presidents. But the real star of the show? Their prime rib, a perfectly seasoned, slow-roasted cut that's melt-in-your-mouth tender and full of rich, meaty flavor. And the charm doesn't stop at the menu. The building oozes old-world character, and some of the staff have been working there for over 60 years, adding a personal touch you just don't find anymore. Weidmann's. In the heart of Meridian, Mississippi, Weidmann's stands as a true Southern institution with a story that stretches back to 1870. Founded by Swiss chef Felix Weidmann, it's one of the oldest restaurants in the South and proudly listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Over the years, it's been lovingly passed down through generations, with a major revival in 1999 under current owner Charles Fraser, who brought back beloved dishes like shrimp and grits and the decadent black bottom pie. One of the most charming traditions? Every table comes with a pot of peanut butter, a custom that began during the butter shortage in the 1940s and stuck around ever since. With its warm brick walls, vintage charm, and deep sense of history, dining at Weidmann's isn't just about the food, it's about stepping into a legacy. Whether you're a first-timer or a lifelong fan, it always feels like coming home. Huston Tavern. Established in 1834 by Judge Joseph Huston, it's the oldest continuously operating restaurant west of the Mississippi River. Originally built as a family home and tavern, it became a vital stop for weary travelers along the Santa Fe Trail, offering hearty meals, lodging, and a welcoming hearth. Though Arrow Rock declined after the Civil War, local women's groups stepped in during the early 1900s to save the tavern, eventually turning it into a museum and persuading the state to preserve it. Today, Huston Tavern still stands in all its 19th century glory, with creaky wooden floors, antique charm, and a dining room that transports you straight into the past. And the star of the menu? Their crispy, golden fried chicken, comforting, flavorful, and just like Grandma used to make. Pekin Noodle Parlor. Step into a living piece of American immigrant history at Pekin Noodle Parlor in Butte, Montana, the oldest continuously operating Chinese restaurant in the U.S., serving customers since 1911. Founded by Chinese immigrant Hum Yao during the booming Gold Rush era, the restaurant was created to serve Butte's once thriving Chinese community. Today, it still exudes old-world charm, with its signature private booths draped in bright orange curtains and dishes rolled out on vintage trolleys. Though the Chinese population in Butte has diminished over time, Pekin remains a beloved fixture, serving up classic Chinese-American comfort food like chow mein and chop suey, recipes passed down through generations. The menu even includes some hearty American favorites, blending cultures just like its founders once did. Glur's Tavern. In Columbus, Nebraska, you'll find a Wild West gem that's been pouring cold drinks and sizzling burgers since 1876. Welcome to Glur's Tavern, the oldest continuously operating bar in Nebraska. Originally built by Swiss immigrant brothers, it served not only as a saloon, but also as a stagecoach stop, and it even welcomed Buffalo Bill Cody in 1885-1883. Over time, the bar changed hands, but in 1925, Louis Glur took over and added an outdoor beer garden where German bands once played lively tunes. The charm hasn't faded. Original 1800s floors, walls, and foundation are still intact. Inside, the vibe is down to earth and full of rustic character. The food is legendary too. Regulars swear by the thick, skin-on fried potatoes, dusted with Lori's seasoned salt, and their juicy, no-nonsense burgers. Classic, hearty, and full of flavor. Add a cold beer to the mix, and you've got a perfect slice of old-school Nebraska hospitality that hasn't missed a beat in nearly 150 years. The Hancock Inn and Fox Tavern. Nestled in the peaceful town of Hancock, New Hampshire, the Hancock Inn and Fox Tavern has been welcoming travelers since 1789, making it the oldest continuously operating inn in the state. Once a vital stop along a busy trade route, it even hosted future President Franklin Pierce during its early days. Though lovingly renovated, the inn still radiates colonial-era charm, from its cozy wood-beamed ceilings to its clever acoustic trick, bottles hidden in the ceiling to enhance live music. Today, the Fox Tavern offers modern cuisine with a nod to New England flavors. The must-try? Their maple-glazed salmon, perfectly cooked, sweet, savory, and unforgettable. The Cranbury Inn. In the heart of Cranbury, New Jersey, the Cranbury Inn is a true slice of American history that's been standing strong since the 1750s. This beloved landmark once served as a tavern for Revolutionary War figures like George Washington and Alexander Hamilton, and its walls hold stories of the past, including hidden passages once used on the Underground Railroad. You can still see the original timber beams and brickwork that have weathered over 265 years of history. But it's not just about the past. The Cranbury Inn also knows how to serve up unforgettable meals. The standout, their prime rib, slow roasted to perfection. It's tender, juicy, and rich with flavor. Just one of the many reasons diners keep coming back. Genoa Bar and Saloon. Step into the past at Genoa Bar and Saloon, Nevada's oldest operating bar and one of the most iconic Old West watering holes in the country. Opened in 1853, before Nevada was even a state, this rustic saloon in the small town of Genoa has been serving up cold drinks and tall tales for over 165 years. Legendary figures like Mark Twain, Teddy Roosevelt, and John Wayne all bellied up to its historic bar. And speaking of the bar, it's a stunner, complete with an 1800s counter and a diamond-dusted mirror that made its way from Scotland to Nevada by covered wagon. Every creaky floorboard and faded photo tells a story. Whether you're sipping whiskey, swapping stories, or just soaking in the atmosphere, a visit to Genoa Bar isn't just a night out. It's a true step back into the gritty, golden days of the Wild West. 20 forgotten vegetables medieval farmers grew that need to come back. What if the most powerful nutrient-packed vegetables are the ones we've completely forgotten? Grown by medieval farmers, these 20 superfoods once fed kings and saved lives. Yet today, most people wouldn't recognize them. From sweet roots to wild greens, it's time to rediscover the lost flavors that once ruled the garden. Scorzonera. Don't let the name fool you. Scorzonera might sound like a medieval illness, but it was actually one of the most prized root vegetables in Europe for centuries. Sweet, nutty, and surprisingly versatile, Scorzonera earned a spot in monastery gardens across the continent, where it was cultivated with care and used in both cooking and healing. It wasn't just a vegetable, it was a trusted remedy and a gourmet ingredient all rolled into one. Nicknamed Black Salsify due to its dark, rough skin, Scorzonera was more than meets the eye. Peel back the surface and you'd find a tender white root with a rich, nutty flavor, somewhere between artichoke and parsnip. Cooks loved it for its ability to hold up in all kinds of dishes. Whether boiled, sautéed in butter, or roasted alongside meats, Scorzonera added depth and sweetness that elevated even the simplest meals. But this root wasn't just food, it was also believed to fight off venomous bites, especially from snakes. That's where its name comes from. Scorzone is Italian for viper. In medieval times, it was considered a go-to cure for snake bites and other poisons. Whether or not it worked as advertised, it definitely earned its place in herbal medicine. Another bonus, Scorzonera stored beautifully. In an age before refrigeration, that mattered. It could be harvested in the fall and kept for months without spoiling, making it a crucial food source during the colder months. Which of these forgotten vegetables surprised you the most, and would you try growing it yourself? Skirret. Once a cherished staple in medieval gardens and royal kitchens, this slim, white root was the quiet hero of its time. Skirret wasn't just food, it was a lifeline. Unlike today's high-maintenance vegetables that need constant care, skirret was incredibly low effort. Farmers would plant it and simply let it be. Beneath the surface, the roots multiplied like magic, offering a dependable supply of sweet, nourishing food with barely any work. Think of it like nature's underground pantry, always stocked and ready. But skirret didn't just survive, it thrived on taste. Naturally sweeter than modern carrots or even parsnips, this root earned fans in high places. Royalty loved it so much, they insisted it be grown in palace gardens. That's right, this humble veggie had a VIP pass to the royal table. And beyond the noble fanfare, it had real value for everyday folks. During the harsh winters when other crops failed, Skirret kept growing strong. Old texts even called it the comfort of the poor man's table. It was reliable, filling, and sweet. What more could you ask for? Medieval cooks got creative with it too. Roasted, boiled, stewed, even baked into pies. Skirret was like the potato of the Middle Ages, long before potatoes hit European soil. Its versatility was unmatched. Good King Henry. Despite its royal-sounding name, no one really knows who named it or why. But what we do know is this. For centuries, this plant was a cherished favorite all across Europe. It was the kind of vegetable you could count on, season after season. No fuss, no pampering, just good, reliable food that came back year after year like an old friend. Compared to modern spinach, Good King Henry packed more nutrition and asked for far less attention. It wasn't delicate or picky. You didn't have to replant it every spring. Once it took root, it came back on its own, thriving in corners of cottage gardens, alongside fences, or even in rough patches of soil. And it wasn't just the leaves that people used. The young shoots were often cooked and eaten like asparagus, while the larger leaves made a great spinach substitute in pies, soups, and stews. Even the flower buds were enjoyed much like broccoli. But Good King Henry wasn't only food, it also played a role in medieval medicine. Herbalists valued it for its ability to soothe digestion and ease skin issues, making it both a pantry staple and a trusted remedy. It truly was a plant of many talents. So what happened? As farming became more industrial and new varieties of vegetables became popular, humble greens like this faded into the background. But Good King Henry is still out there, quietly growing, waiting for someone to bring it back to the table. Salsify. Let's uncover one of medieval Europe's strangest and most surprising vegetables, salsify. At first glance, it doesn't look like much. It's a scraggly brown root that could easily be mistaken for something you'd toss aside. But don't judge it by its rough exterior, because on the inside, salsify is a true delicacy. Back in the day, this humble root was a winter kitchen hero. What made it special was its flavor, surprisingly similar to oysters. That made it perfect for religious fasting days when meat and fish were off the table. Monks, nuns, and devout households across Europe leaned on salsify as a go-to food during long, cold seasons when options were limited. And unlike many other vegetables, it didn't mind the cold one bit. In fact, you could dig it up right from the frozen ground, making it a reliable source of nourishment when fields were barren and pantries were bare. Cooks loved it, not just for its taste, but for its versatility. Salsify could be boiled, mashed, roasted, or even creamed into soups. It blended beautifully with herbs and butter and made an elegant dish out of the simplest ingredients. Though it looked uninviting, it delivered a flavor and texture that rivaled more expensive fare. Think of it as the medieval version of comfort food with a gourmet twist. Over time, as global trade brought in new vegetables and seafood became easier to access, salsify lost its place on the menu. But it still grows, waiting to be rediscovered by modern gardeners and food lovers. Maybe it's time we bring back this oyster-flavored root and give it the spotlight it once enjoyed. Alexander's. Brought to Britain by the Romans, Alexander's didn't wait for an invitation. It made itself right at home, thriving along roadsides, cliffs, and garden edges without asking for care or attention. It was the ultimate freelance vegetable, popping up wherever it pleased, and always ready to lend its flavor to the kitchen. What made Alexander's so beloved back then was its amazing versatility. Every single part of the plant could be eaten, from the roots deep in the soil to the seeds high up on its tall stalks. Its flavor? Think of something between parsley and celery, but with a bolder, earthier punch. People cooked the stems like celery, tossed the flowers into fresh salads, and even used the seeds as a stand-in for pepper. The leaves brought a sharp, herbal note to soups and stews. In an age when spices were expensive and hard to get, Alexander's filled the gap beautifully. Standing up to 6 feet tall and crowned with bright yellow blooms, it didn't just feed people, it also helped the garden by attracting bees and other pollinators. For centuries, this plant had a place in every kitchen garden. But like many great things, Alexander's quietly faded from the spotlight. By the 1700s, celery, with its crunchier texture and milder flavor, took over. Alexander's was pushed aside and nearly forgotten. Yet today, it still grows wild in many places, waiting to be rediscovered. Woad. Most people know woad as the plant behind the famous blue war paint worn by ancient warriors, but this deep-rooted herb was more than just medieval body art. Believe it or not, woad also fed people. While its claim to fame was the vibrant blue dye extracted from its leaves, a process that involved some impressively foul smells, its young, tender greens were once a welcome addition to springtime meals. In early spring, woad's first leaves would sprout, and folks in medieval Europe knew just what to do. Before the plant matured and took on its dye-producing toughness, those early greens were gathered and eaten, often tossed into fresh salads or lightly cooked like spinach. They had a mild, earthy flavor and offered a rare burst of green when winter stores were running low. It was a short window of time when this plant, best known for coloring clothes and warriors, also provided a little nourishment at the table. But once woad matured, it wasn't welcome near the kitchen. Turning it into blue dye involved fermentation, a stinky, messy process that smelled like something had gone horribly wrong. Dye makers often had their vats set far away from where people lived and ate. Still, the payoff was huge. That unmistakable blue color was in high demand, used in everything from peasant garments to noble robes. Woad's dual role in medieval life, as food and fashion, is a perfect example of how nothing went to waste. It filled bellies in the spring and wardrobes all year round. Today, it's mostly remembered for the dye, but maybe it's time to honor the other side of this plant's story, the one that helped feed people long before it colored their clothes. Turnip greens. When most people think of turnips, they picture the round white and purple roots. But in medieval times, it was the leafy tops, the turnip greens, that truly stole the show. These tender, flavorful leaves were just as important as the root itself, and in many households, they were the part people looked forward to most. Packed with vitamins A, C, and K, calcium, and iron, turnip greens were a nutritional powerhouse that fed both peasants and nobles alike. Turnips were one of the most widely grown vegetables in medieval Europe. Hardy and fast-growing, they were easy to plant and could be harvested throughout much of the year. But smart cooks and gardeners knew that wasting any part of the plant was out of the question. The greens were gathered regularly and tossed into soups, stews, porridges, or even boiled on their own, seasoned with a bit of fat or herbs. Their peppery flavor added depth to meals, and they kept people full and strong, especially during the lean winter months when other greens were scarce. Using both the root and the top was a lesson in efficiency and respect for the land. Nothing was wasted, and every part of the plant served a purpose. It's a habit we've mostly lost in today's world of pre-packaged produce and selective eating. Thank you for watching. To continue with more content, comment yes to let us know you're still following. Medlar. Now here's a fruit with a reputation that's both odd and fascinating. The medlar. It may not win any beauty contests, and at first bite, it might even seem like a mistake. But back in the Middle Ages, this strange little fruit was a seasonal favorite. Why? Because unlike most fruits that are best when fresh and crisp, the medlar had to rot before it was ready to eat. That's right. Fresh off the tree, medlars were hard, sour, and downright unpleasant. But give them time. Let them sit in a cool, dark place and go through a natural softening process called bledding, and something magical happened. The tough skin wrinkled, the flesh turned soft and rich, and the flavor transformed into something unforgettable, like a warm spoonful of cinnamon-laced applesauce with hints of dates and wine. In medieval kitchens, medlars were a winter treat. People used them in pies and tarts, turned them into thick jellies, or even fermented them into fruit wine. Their long shelf life made them ideal for the colder months, when fresh fruit was scarce. And despite their unappetizing looks, they were considered a delicacy among nobles and common folk alike. Today, though, medlars have almost vanished from markets. Modern shoppers, used to picture-perfect produce, walk right past them, unaware of the treasure they're missing. But for those willing to wait, to let time work its magic, medlars offer a taste of the past that's both unusual and deeply satisfying. It's proof that sometimes the best things come after a little patience and maybe a bit of rot. Lovage. Brought to Britain by the Romans, this tall, leafy herb was a true overachiever in both the kitchen and the apothecary. With a bold, celery-like flavor and a deep, earthy aroma, lovage wasn't just a seasoning, it was a plant with purpose. And the best part? Once you planted it, it could keep growing for 20 years or more. Lovage was a staple in medieval households, especially in monastery gardens where plants had to pull double duty, both as food and medicine. The leaves added a strong herbal punch to soups, stews, and broths, while the stems were often candied or used in pickles. Even the seeds were prized, used like celery seed to flavor breads, meats, and salads. Its bold flavor meant a little went a long way, making it perfect for stretching meals when ingredients were scarce. But lovage wasn't just about taste. It was considered a go-to herbal remedy for everything from indigestion to kidney issues. The roots were brewed into teas or tinctures to soothe inflammation, while the seeds helped ease bloating and stomach pain. It was the kind of plant you wanted in your garden when both your pantry and your medicine cabinet needed support. Despite its value, lovage eventually faded from everyday use. Milder herbs like parsley and modern celery took its place, and fewer gardeners knew how to care for or cook with it. Have you ever tasted any of these medieval superfoods? If so, what was your experience like? Corn salad. Don't let the name fool you. Corn salad has nothing to do with corn. In fact, this humble leafy green was once a treasured crop across Europe, especially during the long, lean winter months. While other greens faded with the cold, corn salad stepped up, offering a fresh, nutritious burst of green when people needed it most. It grew wild in grain fields, hence the confusing name, and became a go-to winter staple for farmers, monks, and home cooks alike. Corn salad, also known as mashi, has a mild, slightly nutty flavor and a soft texture that made it a perfect addition to cold weather meals. Unlike bitter greens or tough winter roots, it was delicate, yet hearty, and could be eaten raw in salads or lightly wilted into soups and stews. Best of all, it was loaded with omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin C, and beta-carotene, a true nutritional boost when fresh produce was hard to come by. Because it required little care and could grow in cool weather without a greenhouse, it became a dependable friend to anyone with access to a field or garden. But as commercial farming took hold, corn salad lost its place. Lettuces, which stored and shipped better, took over the market shelves. Corn salad became a quiet casualty of modern convenience. Rampion. Before it became the name of a fairy tale princess, rampion, also known as Campanula rapunculus, was a beloved staple in medieval gardens across Europe. This modest little plant packed a double punch. It offered edible roots and tasty leaves, making it a true two-for-one crop in a time when nothing went to waste. Rampion was especially common in monastery gardens, where monks valued plants that could feed and heal. The small white roots were slightly sweet, similar in taste and texture to radishes or young turnips. They were often eaten raw, for a crisp bite, or boiled in stews for a mild, earthy flavor. Meanwhile, the soft green leaves were enjoyed as salad greens or cooked like spinach, offering a gentle, slightly nutty taste that made them easy to work into daily meals. This plant wasn't just nutritious, it was beautiful too. With delicate bell-shaped lavender flowers, rampion added color to otherwise utilitarian garden plots. It grew easily, didn't demand much care, and provided a steady harvest from root to leaf. That made it ideal for self-sufficient communities, especially during times when trade and transport were unreliable. Horseradish. Today, horseradish might just be that zesty white paste next to your roast beef, but back in the Middle Ages, it was so much more. This powerful root was a kitchen essential and a medicine chest staple, bringing both flavor and healing to the medieval world. It was strong, it was spicy, and it definitely wasn't shy. Long before it was relegated to condiment status, horseradish was treated like a full-fledged root vegetable. People grated it fresh and stirred it into sauces, soups, and broths to add a sharp, nose-tingling kick to otherwise bland or boiled meals. Its intense flavor woke up tired winter dishes and added depth to preserved meats and root vegetable stews. But it wasn't just about taste. Horseradish had a job to do. In the cold, damp months, when respiratory illness was common and fresh produce scarce, horseradish earned its place as a natural remedy. Its strong vapors were known to clear stuffy noses and ease coughing, much like modern-day decongestants. It was also used to stimulate digestion, fight off infections, and even relieve joint pain when applied as a poultice. Medieval herbalists praised it for its heat and strength, often pairing it with honey or vinegar in homemade tonics. Horseradish was rugged, easy to grow, and able to survive harsh climates, a perfect companion for medieval gardens. Its roots could be harvested through the cold seasons and stored for months. So while we may know horseradish as a bold sidekick today, it was once the main attraction, a fiery, reliable root that fed, healed, and warmed up households when it mattered most. Maybe it's time to give it back some of that well-earned respect. Chickweed. Let's talk about a tiny plant that once played a big role in medieval life, chickweed. These days, most people yank it out of their gardens without a second thought. It's dismissed as just another weed. But back in the Middle Ages, chickweed was anything but unwanted. In fact, it was considered a gift from nature, a free, fast-growing source of food and medicine that popped up just when people needed it most. You didn't have to plant chickweed. It showed up on its own, growing wild in fields, along paths, and between garden rows. And instead of wasting time trying to fight it, medieval folks did something smarter. They harvested it. Chickweed grows year-round, even during the cold months when other greens vanish. It was a lifesaver, especially in winter, offering a fresh dose of green when fresh food was hard to come by. And it wasn't just filler, it was full of nutrients, especially vitamin C, which helped ward off scurvy and kept people healthier during long, harsh winters. It had a mild, slightly sweet taste that made it perfect in soups, stews, and salads. Both peasants and nobles ate it, making it one of the rare plants that crossed class lines. Beyond the kitchen, chickweed was also used medicinally. It soothed skin irritations and reduced inflammation, earning it a place in medieval herbal remedies. It was food and medicine, all in one, and it cost nothing. Tansy. In the wild world of medieval herbs, tansy was the one that never whispered. It shouted. Bold, bitter, and packed with over 40 distinct flavor compounds, this herb made a serious impression in every dish it touched. Cooks didn't just use it, they relied on it. Whether they were seasoning meats, flavoring sweet custards, or preserving food before refrigeration existed, tansy was their secret weapon. Tansy, with its feathery leaves and bright yellow button-like flowers, was a familiar sight in gardens and monastery grounds across Europe. Its flavor was sharp, almost peppery with hints of camphor, and definitely not for the faint of heart. It added punch to roasted meats, gave body to sauces, and was even baked into special Easter cakes and puddings. But its uses went far beyond flavor. In a time when food preservation was a constant struggle, tansy acted as a natural preservative, slowing spoilage with its potent oils. Medicinally, it was praised for everything from aiding digestion to repelling insects and parasites. Some even believed it could help treat fevers and cleanse the body. It wasn't just an herb, it was a multi-tool for survival. But as time went on, tastes changed. New herbs arrived with gentler, more versatile flavors. Think parsley, thyme, or sage. Compared to these, tansy was just too loud, too bitter, too intense for the modern palate. Slowly, it faded from kitchens and medicine chests alike. Sea kale. Imagine walking along a windy European shoreline and stumbling across a plant that once helped ward off scurvy, filled stomachs, and brought rich, earthy flavor to the table. That plant is sea kale, a rugged and resilient green that used to be a prized staple in coastal communities. Rich in vitamin C, adaptable in the kitchen, and tough enough to thrive in salty, sandy soil, sea kale was truly a gift from the sea, and it didn't even ask for much in return. Sea kale naturally grows along beaches and cliffs, where few other edibles dare to root. For centuries, locals harvested the young, pale shoots in early spring and cooked them just like asparagus. They were tender, slightly sweet, and had a hint of nuttiness that made them a seasonal delicacy. As the plant matured, its large bluish-green leaves were treated like cabbage, steamed, boiled, or chopped into hearty stews. Even the roots could be roasted, making sea kale a triple threat in the kitchen. It wasn't just a food, it was a lifesaver. During long winters and sea voyages, its high vitamin C content helped prevent scurvy and supported immune health, especially when fresh produce was scarce. It was easy to prepare, naturally abundant, and required no cultivation, just a bit of foraging along the coast. And yet, somehow, sea kale quietly disappeared from our plates. As industrial farming took over and inland vegetables dominated the markets, this beachside treasure was forgotten. Today, it still grows wild in the very places it once fed generations, but few people recognize it, let alone harvest it. Would you like to see more forgotten foods like these in grocery stores or farmers markets? Why or why not? Welsh onions. Despite the name, Welsh onions are neither from Wales nor true onions, but they were absolute champions in medieval gardens. These hardy green-stemmed plants quietly earned their place at the center of winter survival, providing flavor, nourishment, and reliability when little else could. And the best part? You only had to plant them once. These were perennials, which meant they came back year after year. No replanting, no fuss. Welsh onions look a bit like scallions, with long green leaves and small white bulbs. While they don't form large, round onions like the ones we're used to today, they more than made up for it with flavor. Their mild, onion-like taste made them perfect for seasoning soups, stews, and broths, especially during the cold months when gardens were bare. These plants were often the first to emerge in spring and the last to fade in the fall, making them one of the few fresh green ingredients available during winter. In households across medieval Europe, just one or two Welsh onion plants could provide for a family for a decade or more. Farmers and cooks would cut the leaves, and the plant would keep growing, like nature's endless supply of seasoning. Their resilience and usefulness made them a staple in kitchen gardens and monastery plots alike. Over time, though, as modern agriculture favored annual crops and bigger, more uniform onions, Welsh onions fell out of favor. Today, they're mostly overlooked, but if you're looking for a low-maintenance, flavor-packed perennial to revive from the past, Welsh onions might be just the hidden treasure your garden needs. Fat hen. It may not have the flashiest name, but Fat Hen was once a superstar in the medieval world of food and survival. These days, gardeners call it a weed and pull it out without a second thought. But back in the Middle Ages, people knew better. This wild plant wasn't just edible, it was a nutritional powerhouse that often made the difference between hunger and a full belly. Fat Hen, also known as Chenopodium album, grew freely and without effort. No planting required. It just showed up wherever the soil was disturbed. And rather than fight it, medieval farmers embraced it. The leaves were boiled and eaten like spinach, while the seeds could be dried, ground, and used as flour or porridge. Nothing went to waste. The entire plant had a purpose, making it a reliable food source for both peasants and the poor during lean times. What's truly remarkable is just how nutritious Fat Hen really is. Modern studies show it contains more protein, iron, calcium, and vitamin C than kale, spinach, or cabbage. In a time when diets lacked variety, this accidental crop helped fill the gaps, quietly preventing malnutrition and providing essential nutrients when nothing else would grow. It fed families, fueled workers, and grew in abundance, even in poor soil. Yet today, most people walk past it without a second glance, unaware of its history or value. Maybe it's time we rethink what we call a weed. Fat Hen once helped entire communities survive. Perhaps it's ready for a revival in the age of superfoods. From frontier saloons to colonial taverns, these restaurants are living slices of history. If you visited any of these places, or know one we missed, drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Who remembers? With fellow history lovers. Thanks for joining us on this delicious journey through time.